Let's talk about the 4 levels of cheating in EverQuest. Why do people cheat, and how are you probably breaking the rules too? What is cheating? We, Daybreak Games, do not allow the use of any third-party programs that modify the game client or its memory data. Additionally, programs that automate movement or actions in the game are not allowed. Exendo 2022. So cheating is using any third-party software, right? Yes and no. It's written so vague that any third-party program could be considered cheating, but in practice, GMs selectively enforce this rule. What line they draw seems to change from year to year, server to server, and even staff to staff. So let's get into the 4 levels of cheating and why people do them. Level 1. Doing these could be interpreted as cheating if a GM really stretches the rules, but honestly, these aren't cheating at all, and no one gets banned for these in reality. Gina is a program that reads your game files to give you alerts. It's a requirement for raid guilds, actually. For instance, it'll warn you when to get out for when a raid mob's going to do a massive AoE nuke. Gina definitely helps players do better than those who don't use it. It's an advantage to have. Could be argued cheating, but it doesn't make your character do anything in game. It's just like an additional heads-up display that gives you warnings. No one ever gets banned for this. Parsing programs. So these tell you how much damage and or healing everyone is doing. It can be used to help you improve how well you play, especially on raids, but again, it doesn't make your character do anything, so no one gets banned for this either. Now, most types of cheating involve playing multiple characters at once. Boxing. So what is boxing? Why do a lot of people risk getting banned for it? Game design. Most classes can't solo well, if at all. To grind levels, you're gonna need help. Your level appropriate quests need help. Your must-have pieces of gear, you'll need help to kill the mobs that drop it. Some people choose to play multiple characters themselves because it's the better option, and sometimes the only option to get things done. Some servers have no leveling population. Some servers do have people, but they're all online when you're not. Like if you're a European player on an American server. Some people can't commit to long play sessions because real life interrupts a lot. You know, try having a baby. These are all honest reasons to box. The other common reason for boxing is not so honest. It's to efficiently farm the game to sell for real life money. Real money transactions, RMT. Boxing is allowed, but how much software help you use to box is the question. So moving on, still on level 1 of cheating, most progression servers have something called the Truebox Code. It's a block making it so that you can only play one character per computer. Whereas on every other server, you could run infinite characters on one computer. It's a definite limitation. Truebox is intended to stop boxing, but there's several ways around it. The most legal way is to buy multiple computers. So say get 3 computers so you can play 3 characters. And you have to manually swap over to control each character individually. This is following the rules to the letter, so you will not be banned doing this. The problem is scaling. 2 is doable, 3 is pushing it, and 4+ is exhausting. Who wants to deal with the headache that is 6 computers to play 6 characters, a full group that is? 5 extra computers cost $1,000 minimum to buy. Your room's gonna feel like an oven with all those computers on. That's a bigger power bill. It's environmentally unfriendly because you could have just played it on one computer, and it's the most inefficient way to play multiple characters. I did this once on Thornblade, just doing 2 players, and I quit after like a week or 2 because it physically hurt my body to move back and forth over and over for hours, and that was just 2 computers, not 6. It's not fun, it's a pain in the ass. Rightfully so. We don't want people boxing here, right? A problem with Truebox servers is they see a sharp decline in population the longer they go. Most people only want to go through the first few expansions of EverQuest. Everything else, who cares? The people who choose to stay the long haul on a server, they just completely run out of help, so they're forced to box. I'm glad that devs are finally relaxing Truebox rules as servers get into later expansions, but personally I feel you have to wait too long. The low-level population is usually gone by Luckland and Plains of Power, and then waiting 2 to 6 expansions after that I feel is just beating a dead horse. I really feel that Truebox hurts honest players the most. Truebox doesn't stop dishonest players from using workarounds. So the last part of level 1 of cheating, so some people will bend the rules a little further with screen sharing software, specifically programs like Multiplicity and Parsec. So say you use 2 computers to play 2 characters, you're still following the Truebox code. It's a pain to physically move back and forth between those 2 computers over and over. So what you can do is screen sharing. You can use a screen sharing software to broadcast and control your second character from your main computer. Much more ergonomic that way. Now, this does risk a ban. EverQuest does track what programs are running in the background while you're playing. You'll get flagged in their anti-cheat system, but I find this ridiculous to ban people over. You're still playing manually. Nothing's automated. Level 2. I'm going to call this level light cheating. You definitely can be banned for doing any of these from here on out, but there's different degrees. I think level 2 is the most innocent form of true cheating, in my opinion. Now, we're talking about the Interspace suite of programs in ISBoxer. I rarely hear people getting banned for this in EverQuest, but it is possible. So we're talking about servers that aren't Truebox. We're talking about live servers where you can run multiple characters on one computer. Interspace is huge for quality of life. It lets you configure how you want the different character tabs set up on your screen. For instance, you can have 6 mini tabs all on one screen, or you could have one full screen tab on your main monitor and the other 5 characters on your backup monitor. You can set it up however you want. And it also gives you a keybind to quickly swap between the different tabs. Control Alt 1, Control Alt 2, Control Alt 3. It gives you those keybinds so you can quickly and reliably swap between the different characters instead of guessing when you're like alt-tabbing through it. Base Interspace is innocent because it's just a Windows organizer. That's it. It doesn't make your characters do anything, but you can take it a step farther over the cheating line. You can set up the ISBoxer program that comes with Interspace to make all your characters act at once. It's called a key repeater program. Now, it won't do this out of the box. There's a lot of setup, but it's amazing what you can accomplish when you get a handle on it. And this is how I personally box 4 characters in EverQuest 2. In ISBoxer, you can create custom keybinds that send a command to each character simultaneously, instead of just controlling one at a time. So for instance, I have the 7 key programmed to make all my characters press the 7 key at the same time. I made an in-game macro that'll cycle all their damage abilities. I put that macro in their 7th hotbar slot. All my characters will trigger that damage macro at the same time when I spam the 7 key. So with this program, I can better control multiple characters from one computer in a way that's also ergonomic. That's why it's used. ISBoxer also allows you a window snip feature. You can take a cutout from another character's screen and overlay it on your main character. So I take a cutout of my box's hotbars, I overlay it on my tank screen, my driver tune, and then you can press buttons through it, but it's really slow and unresponsive. I only use the overlay just for visual confirmation that the macros are being hit. I can also see when cooldowns are over. That's it. It's not that great, actually. ISBoxer is not without its limitations, though. It does not work on Truebox servers. And even without ISBoxer, what happens on Truebox servers is if you have multiple keystrokes happening at the same time from one IP address, the Truebox code automatically kicks you off. So generally, people, if they're rolling multiple boxes on multiple computers, they'll use a VPN to change their IP address so that won't happen. They won't get Trueboxed, as it's called. But okay, say you can use ISBoxer, you're playing on a live server or whatever it may be. The boxes are only half as effective as a real person. You cannot macro everything, and a box will not react as fast as a real person. A real player will always perform better. And this is especially bad during emergencies. Like if I pull too much, I just can't respond fast enough, and the macros aren't responsive enough to stop me from wiping. And that same pull, a full group of real players could easily handle it, no stress. So it's not like you can just plow through content, no. You're forced to be deliberately slower than a real group. And I can't raid with this either. Raid mechanics are too complicated for ISBoxer to handle. And as I said earlier, it's not plug and play. It took hours upon hours of creating custom keybinds in the software itself, in conjunction with hours of setting up the macros in the game to work together to make this work. And that's before I ever got to use it. So I remember screaming for over an hour at the computer because I couldn't figure out how to make this crap work. It's not intuitive at all. And I only use it for EQ2 now because it's terrible with EQ1's native macros and its mechanics, which is what I'll visit in level 3. This is my line in the sand with cheating. So I'd argue that ISBoxer shouldn't be considered cheating because it's still very manual. It's a pain to set up, it's not that powerful, and your characters won't do a single thing unless you press buttons. It's not full automation. Characters do not automatically play themselves with ISBoxer. They're not bots. Unlike what you can do with the next program. So ISBoxer is like a gas-powered bicycle compared to the next software that's like a self-driving Tesla. Just blows it out of the water. Level 3. This is moderate to high-level cheating depending on where you use it. MacroQuest, or MQ2 as it's called. What is MacroQuest? Why do people use it? Why is it leagues better than ISBoxer? The best way to explain it, there's a native feature in game called Mercenaries. You can pay for an NPC bot to help you out. Legit feature in the game. MacroQuest is basically the same. Instead of a non-player bot, an NPC bot, MacroQuest can turn a player, a PC, into a bot. A character bot running through MacroQuest can play just as well, if not better, than the NPC mercenary bots, and it's really easy to set up too. The characters will mostly play themselves after you set it up, and that's where MacroQuest really crosses the cheating line. It's not manual at all. This is self-driving. MacroQuest also allows for other quality of life features that are even better, sometimes the only reason people use it. The native follow command in EverQuest is garbage. It's tied to your frame rate, so any frame rate dips can send your boxes veering off into outer space. You also get stuck on everything in the way. Also, EQ1 doesn't automatically assist through your target or heal through your target like EQ2 does. You have to make a dedicated macro in the first game just to make your characters attack your tank's target. You have to make a dedicated macro just for sitting and standing because your regen rate is tied to your stance. So these native commands and mechanics to EQ1 make ISBoxer such a pain to use, and MacroQuest solves them all. MacroQuest follow command uses mesh maps of all the zones, so your boxers never veer off or get stuck on things. It automatically makes your boxes assist the tank and sit down to regen when they need to. It automatically positions melee DPS to the rear so they can do their positional abilities like backstab. It automatically handles buffing and refreshing buffs so you don't have to. That's a huge headache. Huge. It'll take you 30 minutes to rebuff and get back after a wipe. MQ can automatically skill up your abilities that are low, automatically run to buy missing spells, automatically update bizarre listings to sell items. That'll save you an hour. My favorite is the travel to command. You can make your characters run themselves to whatever zone you want, like Guildhall. MacroQuest solves all the logistical headaches of multi-boxing, and that's why people like it. It saves you hours and hours of tedious micromanaging. I first got into it because I was playing on a live server with absolutely no leveling population. Your only help came from boxes. So I started out with ISBoxer, but I noticed it became a headache at much higher levels. It was just too unresponsive. There was too many abilities. So I tried out MacroQuest, and I instantly loved it because it freed me up from micromanaging my boxes to just playing the game. And I didn't want to play tank, healer, DPS. I just wanted to play the support class Bard, and you can with it. I could just play the class I wanted and then everybody else handled themselves. Whereas usually when you box, you're forced to play the tank. That's your only choice. What if you don't like playing tanks? Too bad, sorry. But MacroQuest is one of the only programs where you don't have to. I really can't stress how much of a pain it is to manage the hundreds of buffs in game that you really do need, and then trying to move all these characters that are constantly getting stuck on things and running to outer space. You just don't have to deal with that crap anymore. I gave up on ISBoxer and EQ1 around the 70s. Before that, it's definitely doable, but you get so many spells and AA abilities that it becomes impossible to juggle them all effectively. Post 65, 70, I feel like you have to use MacroQuest to box, or it's just too much. But it is automation. It is botting. It is definitely cheating. Now you can use it for good intentions like I was doing. but it's just as easy to use it for good intentions as it is for bad intentions, and that's the problem. Should you be banned for using MacroQuest? Personally, I feel like if you're not bothering anyone, then why does it even matter? But at the same time, there's so many people who abuse it that I get why it's a problem. But screw what I think. How do devs actually treat MacroQuest? It should be completely banned, right? In practice, devs will definitely ban you for MQ use on a progression server, but it's kind of gray on live servers. So on live servers, MacroQuest is tolerated to a certain degree for whatever reason, and that's what I find really confusing. So if devs were to follow the letter of the law, MacroQuest shouldn't be allowed at all. But people have used it for years on live without incident, and that's what's really confusing people. I personally wish there was a dedicated server where MacroQuest was explicitly allowed. But then every other server, oh, definitely not, immediately bannable. And I think that would be more fair than that, like, is it okay, is it not okay, the gray area that MacroQuest is in now. The Red Guides version of MacroQuest I'm using here, mind you, it's open source software, so there's a bunch of different versions. But the Red Guides version I'm using, they've somewhat reached an agreement with Daybreak to allow this software. The biggest rule they made saying, do not make a version of this that works on Truebox. And to this date, I think Red Guides has followed that to my knowledge, but the agreement is uneasy, if not already broken. So like I said, MacroQuest is open source software. There are other versions of this, so other people have taken this program and violated that truce. Level 4. This is the last level of cheating. In my opinion, these should get instant bans. I'll explain why people do them, but they're all complete exploits. So like I said earlier, the required way, if you're going to box on a Truebox server, is you have to have separate computers for each character. There's a lot of real-life money to be made on these servers. The people farming it couldn't be bothered at all to follow the rules. Oh, get 6 computers to play the manual? Oh, screw that. What some do is they'll run 6 virtual machines on one computer so it looks legit to the Truebox code, and then they'll also use VPNs on each one of those virtual machines to disguise their IP address. And the icing on top is they'll use a cracked version of MacroQuest to automate all their characters. So these people aren't even playing EQ for fun, it's a business to them. They monopolize camps and bottlenecks away from honest players to extort them for money, to shake them down. Ban it. I have no sympathy to gold farmers, to plat farmers, to chrono farmers, or the people who abuse the community at large. No sympathy for that crap whatsoever. So the next workaround for Truebox is called EQBot. So say you don't have the technical know-how to set up virtual machines. You can't play everything from one computer with MacroQuest. Okay, so you do the legit way. You get 6 computers to play 6 characters. But it's a pain to control the manual. So you can get a program called EQBot that can automate those characters almost as good as MacroQuest, just minus some of the extra features. So this is a second way to bot on Truebox progression servers. It looks like a nice way to automate a healer or DPS you're running. It looks very convenient, but personally, I feel that hands-free automation crosses the line on progression servers, and you wouldn't use this at all on live because MacroQuest is just better. So it really only has one specific use. People who want to bot on Truebox servers who don't have the means to run virtual machines, that's why people would do it. The next most popular hack I'm aware of, it's called SEQ, Show EQ, Harry Potter maps, or just eyes. It's a standalone program or is often thrown into vanilla MacroQuest. This version of Red Guides has it included. It alters your in-game map to show you all the mobs that are up and exactly where they are. There's classes in game like Ranger, Druid, and Bard that were meant to have this ability. They were meant to know when stuff spawned and how to get there, but Show EQ is a hack that's 100 times better. It makes the tracking ability that those classes have, it's completely obsolete. Show EQ, its first use was so that raid guilds could track the second a raid mob spawned in the world and know where it was. And quickly, guilds who didn't use it were at a major disadvantage, so everyone started to use Show EQ. It got to the point where you had to cheat yourself or you'd lose because everyone else was cheating. And now, today, it's like every guild has at least one officer and most pullers running this. There's at least generally one person in every zone that's running this. Money farmers like show EQ because they can quickly check zones for any named mobs worth killing or if they're being camped. I get why people use show EQ, but it's legitimately hacking the game. It's reading information from the game code that you really shouldn't have access to, and it puts players who don't use it at a huge disadvantage. And its use is so widespread, enforcement or anti-hack protection needs to be better here. It's really bad. The next cheat I've seen rarely, but it's warping. So instantly teleporting around zones like a GM could. I saw a hacker use this once to troll a 6-box money farmer in Kedge Keep, warped around to the aggro the whole zone, and then trained it on the boxer. So it was nice to see the trash take out the trash, but yeah, players shouldn't have access to GM tools. This is straight up hacking. But in conclusion, the purpose of this video, I would like Daybreak to create a clear policy on cheating. The current rule of any software being bannable, it's just too broad and it's selectively enforced, so players are confused. Officially, Daybreak staff say they can't endorse programs by name because an okay program now could change to become not okay in the future, and that's definitely understandable. However, can they approve features of programs, like approving remote screen sharing, approving key repeaters, approving automation? You don't have to name the program, you can just name the feature. Players have been using third-party programs for years now without incident. Then one random day, I've seen lifelong fans lose 20-year-old accounts and they don't even know it changed. Like, it was fine until now? It's confusing. And what I appreciate about Project 1999 is the rules are not confusing. No hacking, no boxing at all. Quick enforcement too. As a fan of boxing, I love playing P99 because it's clear and it's enforced. I recommend Daybreak to change their cheating policy in the following manner. 1, I would allow players to apply for permission for certain third-party features. This would be just like how Project 1999 allows you to apply for an IP exemption to play with a family member on the same internet. You're fine so long as you have that permission. The player would not be at risk of bans so long as they agree to the following. A, they stay at the keyboard. B, they do not monopolize areas. They don't harass other players. C, and they D, only use it on designated servers. So this would allow Daybreak to have an approved list of players for GMs to quickly check against, and anyone caught multi-boxing without permission is just instantly banned. Also, anyone with permission who violates those 4 prior terms, instantly banned. The main idea is that honest players who try to get permission, who try to do things the legit way, they aren't the problem here. The problem is the people who don't. 2, there should be designated servers where certain third-party features are allowed, but nowhere else. So for both EQ1 and EQ2, I would designate just one live server for automation software. So this is talking about MacRequest features for EQ1 and ISX Ogre for EQ2. I would probably use Furiona Vi for EQ1 just because everyone can transfer onto it, but you can't get off. I don't know about a specific server for EQ2, but they should pick one. Using automation software on any other server, though, should be instantly banned. For key repeater software, I would allow it on any server that isn't Truebox for both games. Key repeaters, you still have to press buttons to make the characters do anything, so it's fairly manual. It's not as bad as botting. But using a key repeater on a Truebox server, especially when they're young, it should be banned. This has potential for abuse in early expansions, but key repeaters don't really matter anymore when mass attrition is hit. Everybody's gone in later expansions, like after Planes of Power. It just helps those who choose to stay on the server long term. Then using multiple computers to manually box on Truebox servers, it should be fine so long as the player has permission to do it. This is how I recommend Daybreak handle multi-boxing, because it's only growing more and more common as the game diminishes in population. It's the boxers paying for multiple subs that really help keep the game stay afloat. It's not good business to ostracize a large part of the player base. And in this video, I do show cheating. I could lose my accounts for this, but I hope Daybreak is mature enough not to ban me. I only show cheating for educational purposes here. I want Daybreak to be fully aware of what's going on. I don't endorse cheating per se. My real argument is the current rules are outdated. This is how many people play, and the rules need to adapt for the game to stay alive long term. This video is meant to be a mature discussion about it. So let me know if there's anything I got wrong or missed, because I'm often wrong. I expect to get hate for this video, but screw it. You know, it's long overdue to have this discussion. What crosses the line? What really does? Because it affects all the thousands of people who still play this game and still love it. Special thank you to Thomas Van for the inspiration of this video, and special thank you to all of you who continue to watch this far. See you in the next one.